Back in November 2018, my wife Emma and I had barely settled into our new place when our peaceful life quickly spiraled into something terrifying. We were scraping by, starting fresh after months of hardship. I'd made a few poor choices that left us with fines, legal fees, and the scars of a rough year. With what little we had, we needed a place cheap and quick, somewhere without deposits or upfront rent. When we found an old boarding house close to our jobs downtown, it felt like a blessing. We didn't realize it would soon feel like a curse. The boarding house was modest, with 4 rooms that shared a kitchen and a single bathroom. The residents were a mixed bunch. On our floor, there was May, a quiet woman in her 30s who lived with her mother. Upstairs, 2 rooms housed Sam, a young guy who'd moved in the same week we did, and a couple who we soon learned were named Ryan and Lisa. They were around our age, friendly enough to exchange a few words on the porch or share a smoke. Despite its odd setup, the place felt manageable at first, even if a bit cramped. Things stayed quiet until November rolled around. That's when things with Ryan and Lisa started to change. Small things at first. Louder than usual arguments or a cigarette bummed one too many times. Then one day I came home to find Lisa coming in with 3 unfamiliar guys, each carrying cases of beer. That night they partied until dawn, keeping us awake with laughter, shouting, and clinking bottles. We brushed it off as a one-time thing. But as days passed, it became clear that the drama surrounding Ryan and Lisa was just beginning. One Sunday morning, Emma and I were woken by a furious argument. Ryan was screaming at Lisa, throwing her belongings into the front yard, calling her names I won't repeat. She stormed off, only to return a few days later. Their shouting matches became routine, loud enough to shake the walls, each one more intense than the last. The nights were filled with their violent exchanges, but as unsettling as it was, we figured they'd eventually settle things. One Tuesday evening, the day before my birthday, Emma and I decided to unwind after work. We smoked a little and put on a movie. Throughout the film, we could hear Ryan and Lisa stomping and shouting in the room directly above ours. We'd gotten used to tuning it out, but that night, their fighting was relentless. Finally, as the credits rolled, their yelling stopped. Relieved, we turned off the lights and snuggled into bed, grateful for the peace. Hours later, I woke to Emma shaking me, her eyes wide and fixed on something beside me. Disoriented, I thought she'd seen a spider or something small. But when I turned, I froze. There, beside my bed, was a man hunched over my nightstand, rifling through the drawer. He held an empty milk jug in one hand, his face partly hidden by the shadows. For a split second, we just stared at each other. Then, as he straightened, I recognized him. It was Ryan. Heart pounding, I sat up, trying to keep my voice calm. "What are you doing, Ryan?" I asked, barely keeping the panic from showing. "Why are you in here?" Ryan stood still, his eyes darting nervously between me and Emma. After a long pause, he finally spoke, his voice low and erratic. "Can I borrow your car? I need to go to the gas station. Just real quick." Emma, thankfully more alert than I was, didn't hesitate. "Are you serious? You broke into our room at 4 a.m. to ask for a car? No, get out," she snapped. Ryan stood there for a moment and then suddenly bolted out the door, running down the street towards the gas station. Shaken, we sat in silence, processing what had just happened. Before we could even speak, Sam, our neighbor from upstairs, came down the hall. He'd heard the commotion and wanted to warn us that Ryan and Lisa's fight had been the worst yet. He hadn't heard any noise from their room for nearly an hour. Feeling uneasy, Emma suggested we check on Lisa. Together with Sam, we climbed the stairs and approached Ryan and Lisa's door, which was shut but not locked. After knocking and getting no response, we slowly pushed the door open. Inside, the room was chaos. The walls and ceiling bore strange, erratic gashes, as if someone had tried to break through them. And there, on the couch against the far wall, lay Lisa, motionless. Blood stained the cushions, thin streaks ran down the walls, and her face was a mess of bruises and cuts. For a moment, I thought she was just unconscious. But as I drew closer, the horrifying truth dawned on me. I staggered back, realizing that her face had been beaten beyond recognition. Sam's trembling voice broke the silence as he called 911, describing what we'd found. She's been hit in the face. Badly, I think. With a sledgehammer. Within minutes, the police arrived, cordoning off the house. They informed us that Ryan had been caught wandering aimlessly down the street. In their investigation, they discovered a stash of tools, including the bloodied sledgehammer. The police also suspected that Ryan had been tampering with the house's gas line, potentially planning to burn the place down. The whole experience left us rattled. The following morning, we stayed home from work watching as reporters gathered outside pressing for statements. Eventually, the story made the local news, but only as a short segment. As quickly as it had erupted, the media moved on, and soon the memory of that night began to fade from public interest. But for us, it never did. A couple of years later, just when we thought the ordeal was behind us, I received a subpoena to testify in court. I'd found myself in a bit of legal trouble again, this time for a probation violation. While I was locked up in the county jail, I learned that Ryan's trial was finally about to begin. Given the circumstances, the prosecutor arranged for me to testify in plain clothes to avoid alerting the jury to my current situation. The jail had an odd procedure. They gathered all inmates with court appearances that day in a large holding cell before escorting them upstairs. I begged the guards not to put me in the same cell as Ryan, but they assured me it wouldn't be an issue. When they called my name, I made my way to the entrance only to feel a hand tap my shoulder. Turning, I found myself face to face with Ryan. He gave me a chilling smile, leaning in slightly. "Good luck in there," he murmured. Swallowing hard, I managed a shaky reply. "You too," I muttered, running as fast as I could. From then on, the jail took extra precautions to keep us apart. But that single moment was enough to haunt me for years. I can't shake the memory of Ryan standing over my nightstand that night, milk jug in hand, rummaging through our things like it was the most normal thing in the world. It terrifies me to think of how close we were to becoming his next targets.